Hello, Patriots, and welcome to Patriot Point this week, the program where we give you the news that you are not going to get somewhere else. You will not see or hear it there. You know what else you don't see or hear? You never see or hear a spontaneous USA, USA. You never see that kind of a chant break out at a Democratic event now, do you? Just thought I'd point that out. You know something else we have not seen? We've not seen these liberals keep their promises. Didn't they promise that if Donald Trump got elected that they would move out of the country? They'd move to Europe, they'd move to Canada, they'd just move anywhere. I don't care where you go, just go. And we didn't see them actually fulfill their promises when Trump was president for all those years. I tell you something, it just goes to prove you that even people who hate America, they still won't leave because America is that great. Let me tell you why America's so great. I have never seen convoys of people trying to get into socialist countries like Venezuela. How come the convoy is headed out of socialism instead of towards socialism if that is so great and capitalism is so bad? I have never seen rafts or boats of people trying to get into Cuba. We have seen over the many years people trying to get out of socialist communist Cuba to try to get into a free enterprise capitalist system. And right now we are seeing Cubans who have had enough of communism and socialism, and they are crying out for freedom. And you notice one of the things they're doing is waving the American flag. They're like, hey, this thing is the opposite of socialism and communism. So here's what I propose. One of the ways we can fix America is for every one of these liberals who wants to have socialism, I say we trade that for one Cuban who's been sick to death of it who wants to have freedom. And I think we should trade them at a one-for-one swap. And you actually get some more conservative voters out of the process. So I think that'd be a great process, maybe help fix America. Tell you another way to help fix America is we need to secure the border. I didn't say close the border. No, America was built upon legal immigration. It was built upon people who wanted to come here to work to build a better life. It was not built upon people who wanted to come here and take advantage of other people's work. Big difference between those two things. And if we were to secure the border, some certain things are going to happen. First of all, there's going to be less drugs in America because they're not coming across the border anymore. Less drugs. There will be less gang members. There will be less people coming in to take advantage of our social programs. And there will be less liberal voters. And that's one of the reasons why the liberals, they just want the border open because Americans are the ones paying for all this and they're sick and tired of paying for it all. That's why we should secure the border. That's some of the ways to fix America. And that's kind of the theme of the program this week is on fixing things. And I specifically want to talk about ways that we can fix Kentucky. 3 specific ideas on how to help fix some of Kentucky's problems. Now, here is one of our problems. First of all, is the Kentucky General Assembly meets for about 60 days a year. Like next year, they'll meet for 60 working days. Now, they do this all bunched up together, not counting weekends and holidays. And you get those legislators who don't live close to the Capitol in Frankfurt. That means they've got about a quarter of the year where they're away from their families, when they're away from their businesses, when they're away a lot from their constituents. And so that's a major problem for not only the legislator, but also for their families, their businesses, and we the people. Has another problem is they have to push all of the bills they're going to do that year into that little 60-day window where it's all right next to each other. Now, this past year, here in 2021 actually, we had about 900 different bills written. And they're multiple pages long. And think about not only 900 bills, but there were multiple times of that of floor amendments, of committee amendments. And there is more than any one person could ever go through. There's been multiple legislators over the years who have been overwhelmed and they're like, listen, I've not had time to read this bill. It's coming at us too quick, but I've been told it's good, so I'm going to vote on it without actually reading it. That is a bad idea. That is a problem. We need to fix that. Also, there's the problem. The legislature meets for the 60 working days, the first quarter or so of the year, and that leaves the governor without the legislative branch having a say into what a governor is doing. And as we've seen in the last year and a half, you might get an out-of-control governor without the legislative branch being able to be a balance in the checks and balances. So how do we actually fix this? Here is what I propose. Right now, we have the legislature again on 60 working days all bunched up. What if instead the legislature met for 5 consecutive days every month? So you would have 5 days a month times 12 months. That is 60 working days. So it's not like we would have a legislature that is passing laws 365 days a year. They're still actually only passing laws the exact same number of days as they do now. But if they only met for 5 consecutive days a month, you could make it the first full week of the month. Not really particular when they do it, just the idea. Then that would allow them, after 5 days, they'll be back with their family for 3 weeks. They'll be back at their businesses. They'll be back at their district to hear what their people in their district think about the different issues of the day. It would slow down this rush of bills. Instead of 900 coming at them in just 60 days bunched together, it could be the 900 or whatever spread out throughout the entire year. That would give them more time to actually read it, to debate it, to think about it, to hear from their people. And it would also allow we, the people, to hear about some of these issues. Instead of 900 in an 8-week period, we would be able to spread these out throughout the year. It also helps if you have an out-of-control governor who is going out of their way to circumvent all of the restraints that have been placed upon them by the law. Because the legislature, no matter what's going on, they will never be more than 3 weeks from coming back into session. We've also seen in years past, there's been what's called emergency sessions. Some big incident happens in the state and the legislature gets called in special, and it costs the state tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. There would be no need for an emergency session anymore because the legislature, even at the farthest point, is going to be back within 3 weeks. And the chances of an emergency happening the very day after they left anyway is incredibly small. So this is a solution on how to fix Kentucky. With them not being in any extra days, it helps the system, it helps the people, it helps them, it helps their families, helps their businesses. It would require some changes to our state constitution, but I think ones that would serve our state incredibly well. And I hope that we'll get some people in our legislature to propose that and put that on the ballot for the people to vote on. Let's talk about it. And another way that this is applied is that this follows a biblical principle. If you read over in the book of 1 Kings, chapter number 5, verses 13 and 14, the head of the government at that time was King Solomon. And he had this project. He wanted to build the temple. So he recruits these people to do the work. And he says, okay, you're going to do the work for 1 month, and then you will spend 2 months at home, and then you will come back and you will work for 1 month. And then you will take 2 months at home. And they just repeated this cycle until the project was finished and the work for the state was complete. And so we see there is a biblical principle. Don't make these people be away from their homes and be up there for all this time to get it done. Break it up into little bite-sized pieces, and you're actually going to wind up with better product in the end. So that's our first point out of 3 on how to fix Kentucky. Point number 2 on how to fix Kentucky. One of the things we need to fix is we need to secure our elections. And here's one of the ways I propose that we do that. I don't like these electronic voting machines. Don't like them at all. It's like Brussels sprouts. Do not like them at all. I don't care how much sugar they try to put on the situation. I don't like electronic voting machines because I have no way of knowing if the number that comes out was the number that went in. And if you asked for a recount, all I can do is tell the machine to spit back out another ticket, and it tells me whatever it wants. And anytime you have an electronic machine that somebody built, that means somebody can hack it. Therefore, here is a way to fix this and to absolutely secure our elections, which is vital to secure our democratic republic. And that is APB. You know how police put out APBs? APB, all paper ballots. And here's the way that you can do that. You have to be registered to vote in your precinct a month or more before the election is going to happen. So we know how many people in every county, in every precinct are registered to vote. So the Secretary of State's office, which handles elections, should print up ballots that have the exact number for that precinct and for that county. You could put a little code at the bottom that would be the county code and the precinct code. And then you could add to that, and this is number 117 out of 300 or however many it is. And then you deliver that number of ballots to each and every precinct. Then when people show up, they cast their ballots. The ballot is still anonymous because it's not like you sign your ballot, but we know the exact number of ballots that we should receive from every single precinct. And we also can have the polling monitors turn back in all of the blank ones as well. And so we can count the number of people who signed in that day to the number of ballots received, and it still allows for mail-in ballots. There are some legitimate reasons for mail-in ballots, such as I was a military member. You might have a military member who is overseas and they want to exercise their right to vote. So they're going to need to mail that in. You could double check this with the people who signed in. They are in person in the precinct and see if they signed in. If they signed in, then their mail-in ballot gets thrown away because they would have voted twice. It is a way to account for every single ballot that is cast in the state. And then, of course, you have somebody from each party, as is already required, at each polling place to verify the box was empty when we started. Here's the number of ballots we had, and here is the finished ones when we're done. And if you need to recount, you would have a paper trail for how to recount everything, and it would 100% secure our elections before the very next election. APB, all paper ballots. I'm Lee Watts, and I approve this message. So that is two of the ways to help fix Kentucky. First of all, let's spread out the legislative year to 1 week per month. Number two, let's have all paper ballots. And number three, we need to put more conservatives into office. Even though we are only halfway through the current governor's term, in fact, a little less than halfway, we are already starting to see people line up to run against Andy. Hashtag one term Andy. Who can say amen right there? And we are starting to see some people file. The first person who has filed to run against Andy Beshear on the Republican side is a man by the name of Mike Harmon. And he was a state legislator for 13 years. He is currently serving his second term as the Kentucky State Auditor. I had a chance, he said he announced publicly that he's running for governor, so I had a chance to sit down with him there in his home and talk to him about why he's running for governor, and let's let you hear that now from his own mouth. Today we have with us the Kentucky State Auditor Mike Harmon, who is also now candidate to be the next governor of Kentucky. Mike, thanks for being on Patriot Point today.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, wonderful. I'm very excited about seeing the possibilities of replacing our current governor.
Definitely.
So I would like you, first of all, tell us, why are you seeking the highest office in our state?
Sure. Well, I thought about it and I prayed about it, and I feel like I'm being led in that direction to run. I'm a husband and a father and a grandfather, and I want my kids and my grandkids, and even hopefully I get the chance to see my great-grandkids. I want them to love their state. I want them to love their country, and I want them to have, to have a better life than what we have had.
I think that's the hope of every good parent, is if they can make it better for the next one. Well, tell us a little bit about your background. What has led you to this today?
Sure. I actually graduated Boyle County High School as valedictorian. Went on to Eastern Kentucky University, where I graduated with a triple major in math, statistics, and theater. 2002, I was elected, and I represent everybody, but I was actually the first Republican from Boyle County to be elected to that office in 102 years.
How long were you in the House of Representatives?
For 13 years. And then when I was elected auditor, I was actually the first Republican auditor elected since 1967.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now tell us a little bit about if there is to be Governor Harmon.
Sure.
What would be your office's, your administration's main focus?
Sure. Well, I always, as auditor, when I first came in, I told everybody we don't card anyone, we don't give anybody a pass, we just simply follow the data. And it's very similar as governor. I mean, I think it's very important as governor, that we get back to making sure that people have jobs, we get back to making sure that our families are taken care of, that you create a level playing field so that everybody can compete and not choose winners and losers as a state. Certainly, we're going to have a lot of focus. We've still, sadly, got to focus on our pension systems. Although I applaud what the General Assembly has done over the last several years, making sure that the ARCs are funded and making some changes. Some of the earlier changes, actually, I was still in the House when we made the changes that went into effect in 2014. But certainly, it's something we're going to have to continue to monitor for a very long time. I want to make sure that the kids have hope, and to be honest with you, as I said, I'm a husband and a father and a grandfather. I want my grandkids and really my kids to be able to stay in Kentucky and hopefully even close to this area, so that I can see them and then not have to feel like they have to travel to another state. Some of the other things we're going to look at is we're going to continue to look to improve our tax code. From a standpoint, I think once again the General Assembly has done a good job trying to get us towards that standpoint where we're like Florida and or Texas, but it'll probably be a multi-phase process to get us to where we no longer have income tax. We are just not as competitive because of that. Now, when previous governors and the General Assembly together had improved our work environment, on multiple levels, but from a tax code standpoint, we've still got to work on that.
Well, I know a whole lot of us will be very excited about that. I spent a lot of time in the program talking about the biblical principles of like a flat tax or fair tax,
Yeah, exactly.
which is more the system that you're talking about.
Yes.
I think other states have shown that to be prosperous and also follows more of a biblical example.
Exactly.
Now, during the last 2 years, I've given Governor Beshear a hard time on the way that he's been handling or mishandling Kentucky's business, Kentucky's affairs during the pandemic. Let's say we had Governor Harmon.
Sure.
Explain to me some of the differences there would have been between a Harmon administration and a Beshear one in handling this pandemic.
Sure. It would probably reflect a little bit more about what some of our Republican governors, like in Florida and Texas, did. More than likely, given the direction that President Trump indicated initially, might still have to shut a few things down for a couple of weeks. But certainly, it would be my goal to get everybody back as quickly as possible. Some of the other things we did, the governor kind of dings Governor Bevin about shutting down a few of the unemployment offices. Of course, he doesn't like to talk about the fact that his own father kind of headed that direction as well. But Governor Andy Beshear shut them all down.
100% of them down.
In person. So certainly we would make sure that we had access to people to be able, if we're going to shut down businesses, people need to have access to someone that can help them with that. That whole thing was just a systemic failure in leadership. You had people at Walmart and Kroger and your frontline people, they still had to go to work. And even if you put in plexiglass or whatever, to have that ability to have a face-to-face person help walk you through the situation, we would have been so much better.
Any other differences between your administration and his during the pandemic?
My understanding, and talking to some of my friends with the General Assembly, really there was very little communication in that regards. The other thing I would have done is, if you were actually going to shut down all these businesses, and the General Assembly, a lot of people don't realize, the General Assembly offered 100+ members of the LRC, the Legislative Research Commission, to be able to assist with these unemployment claims. I would have taken that help, but unfortunately our governor turned it down, and we see the problem we have. There are still people with initial claims that have not received their unemployment.
I've talked to some just this week, been more than a year, and have yet to hear anything.
Yeah.
And then I noticed as auditor, you had been able to find findings where people have been greatly overpaid and had misused it because of holes that were caused to the Beshear administration removing some of the safeguards.
Exactly.
So, well, very exciting to have a mathematician and a statistician who'd be in the office to run Kentucky more like a business.
Well, thank you.
And I think that would be a very exciting. We'll look forward to talking to you and following everybody on the campaign trail as Kentucky gets ready to make its decision. Now, if people wanted to learn more about Mike Harmon, where can they go to find out about you, your positions, what you stand for?
Sure. Well, there will be a page, MikeHarmon.com, www.MikeHarmon.com. Depending on when this airs, it may be a basic page and it will be a growing page. But you should be able to go there if you want to participate or help out or donate. You should be able to go to that particular page. And the one thing I want to encourage everybody towards the end of this, this is probably going to be a pretty crowded primary, would be my guess. And one of the things that I want to encourage everybody, that when this is over, the primary is over, we've all got to come together as a party and as a state. Because the one thing that we need to make sure at the end of 2023, we want to make sure that Governor Andy Beshear is a one-term governor.
Well, a hearty amen to that. All right. All right. Well, thank you, Candidate Harmon, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
So that was the interview with Mike Harmon, the candidate for governor running against Andy Beshear. And at the time I'm recording this, he is right now the only Republican running against Andy. And I have to say, I like Mike. So we need to put some more true conservatives into Kentucky's offices at all levels. We need true conservatives in the governor's mansion. We need true conservatives in the legislature. We need true conservatives to be our county judge executives, to be in our county school boards, to be mayors. Every single level of Kentucky government needs to have true conservatives there, and that's a way that will fix Kentucky. So the three ways are, first of all, let's spread out the legislative year. Second, all paper ballots. Third, let's put conservatives in charge of the Commonwealth. Well, that's what we have for this week. And until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.